Hi everybody and welcome to the Truck King YouTube channel. Today we are looking at the largest vehicle to come from each one of these three brands. That is the Hyundai Palisade, that's the Volkswagen Atlas, and that is the Mazda CX-9. And in this video we're going to compare the way they look, the way they drive, and maybe most importantly, what's inside. We're going to kick this one off with the walk around, and I am going to talk today about this Mazda CX-9. Matthew has been driving the Volkswagen Atlas for a week, Dad's been driving the Hyundai Palisade, and I'm basically here to convince you why this Mazda is better than those two. So, powering this CX-9 is a 2.5-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. It puts out 227 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque on 87 octane fuel. Mazda does publish numbers for 93 octane as well, and if you do bump up, you're gonna get 20 extra horsepower and 10 extra pound-feet of torque. Now, all of that power here in the CX-9 is sent through a 6-speed automatic transmission. Now, you guys have eyeballs too, right? This thing is obviously the best looking crossover here. The CX-9 you're looking at right here is the Kuro Edition. Now the Kuro Edition is all about adding extra styling, and I think it just looks sharp. So if you go for this Kuro, you're gonna get things like a gloss black finish up there on the grille. You're gonna get black metallic finish all over this thing, including on the mirrors right here. And you're gonna get a set of 20-inch alloy wheels, once again, blacked out. This thing looks sharp, and I think it's the best looking crossover out of the three.
So I came to the shoot today with this, the 2021 Volkswagen Atlas Exec line. Now the Exec line is the top trim in the Atlas package, and it comes with a 3.6 liter V6, which makes 276 horsepower and 266 pound-feet of torque. And all that is coupled to an 8-speed automatic 4-motion transmission. So this package here is actually the R-Line appearance package. And now what do you get with that? You get some exterior styling accents, all your chrome in the grille, those really cool R badges that make people think you got 400 horsepower under the hood. The styling accents on the side, again with the cool R accents, and the 21-inch wheels. Now I'm the only one with 21s here today. These guys all brought little baby 20s. I got the big wheels. Inside the car, you've got the brown leather seats accenting throughout the doors and stitching, as well as badging and brushed aluminum pedals. They're really sharp looking.
So what I brought today was the Hyundai Palisade. This is their largest crossover, and in this edition there's seating for 7 in there, 4 captain seats and a rear bench. And frankly, this model is all about space. But looking at it here from up front, you gotta admit that it makes an impression. This huge waterfall nose, it tells you that it's arrived, so much more so than that Mazda or that Volkswagen. Now, under the hood here, we have a 3.8 liter V6, which makes 291 horsepower and 262 pound-feet of torque. This is also an Atkinson cycle engine, so it's specifically aimed at increasing your fuel economy. And despite what Matt said, I think these are the best rims of the bunch. Frankly, with that design, the thing looks like it's moving even when it's standing still. So working our way back, the other thing you'll notice about this body design is it's sleek, but it's also really squared up. And once we get inside, you'll see how much room is in here. And frankly, in this class, that's what people are looking for. Room for themselves, their kids, the dog, and all their stuff. And this one's got it in spades.
So now we have to take a look at what Dad was just talking about, interior space. Because if you're buying one of these big 3-row crossovers, it's because you have a lot of people to haul. Now first, we're here in the Hyundai Palisade, and this second row is the most spacious of all 3 of these. Right here, you are getting 42.4 inches of second row legroom. But there's something I have to show you before I climb in, and it's really cool. look at all of this adjustability. This thing reclines, so you can be really comfortable back here. And then once you're in, you can move it back, you can move it forward. So despite how tall you are, you can make this thing work for you. So now I'll go ahead and climb in just to give you a sense. I stand at about 6'2", and I got headroom here, even with this sunroof back here. Plus this headliner is incredibly soft. All right, now let me climb into the back. Get out of the way, I'm working here, man, jeez. So you got a button over here on the side, and this seat tumbles forward, and now the rear seats back here are all powered. So you hold the button, and up she goes. And the headrest too, I'm assuming. Oh, and it reclines. That's actually quite nice too. There's the headrest, and now I'll climb in. So let's see how I actually fit in the door here. Oh, not too bad. Oh, but I do have a classic third row problem here. My knees are way too tall. The floor here is totally flat, so I'm really sitting up like this. And plus the headroom is just enough. They actually put in a little bit of a bump up in here so I can fit up in there. This back seat is for emergencies only for adults. At least that's the feeling I'm getting from it. But you know what? Now we gotta go climb in the other two and see how they look. Now let's take a look at the Atlas. And on paper, this second row has a little bit less than the Hyundai, but it has a bigger third row. Actually, this is the biggest third row of this whole comparison. And once again, I wanna show you that these seats are adjustable, so you can slide them forward and back, plus you can recline them as well. So even though they offer you those numbers, it's always good to know you can adjust them. Now let me sit in here. Once again, tons of headroom, no problem at all there. This thing also has the massive panoramic sunroof, and I fit in all good. But let me climb into the third row now. And what I really want to point out is how these seats tumble. So you pull up on this handle. Oh, that wasn't what I meant to do. So they fold flat, but you pull the handle up here on the shoulder, and then they tumble and they slide forward. This is a great amount of space. This is more than I had in the Hyundai for sure. Now these are not powered in the Volkswagen, so you got to put them up manually. Let me lift up that headrest a little bit, and let me climb in. Definitely easier to get into this one than the Hyundai, no doubt about that. Let me pull this seat back here. She doesn't want to come back for me. There we go. Now, you know what? This feels better than the Palisade, and that is what my sheet says here. This Atlas has 33.7 inches of rear seat legroom. My knees are a little tall. I have just enough headroom, but I have more actual legroom here. Yeah, this is a little bit more comfy than the Hyundai. Now, on to the Mazda. Now let's take a look here at the CX-9, and this should be the most fun one to watch for you guys because this thing is the smallest, so I'm gonna have to jam myself in here. So yes, even on paper, the CX-9 has the least amount of second and third row legroom. This second row is 39.4 inches. The third row back there is actually a hair less than 30 inches. I'll show you that in a moment. So first of all, once again, yes, you do have the adjustability. So if you do wanna recline this seat a little bit, and if you do wanna move it forward and back, you can. Now, it's worth mentioning just the roof line here is so raked that my headroom, it's just enough, but it's definitely tighter than the other two. And getting in, I have to duck a lot more than the other two as well. So the Mazda definitely gives up some space in order to be a little more stylish. Let's see how the third row feels now though. So this seat, you hold up here on the shoulder, it pushes forward. This is definitely the smallest amount of space I've had for getting into any one of these. And now let's see if I can jam my butt back in the third row. Okay, there we go. And front seat in front of me. And I have no headroom. I think this goes without saying. I literally wouldn't even fit back here for more than 10 minutes without getting a crick in my neck. If you really value interior space for the people riding in the back, CX-9 is not the best choice, straight up. And that's about it. I've had enough jamming myself in crossovers for one day.
So on all three of these models, we of course have powered hatches. They will open and close themselves. And just yesterday, I decided to take this Atlas and I actually went ice fishing with a couple of friends. So I had some people in the third row, and I was pretty pumped to see that my little medium-sized ice fishing sled fit in behind the third row with my gear. And we thought today, well, what better thing to do than take that same sled that fit in the Atlas, and let's try and jam it in the other two and see what happens. This CX-9 with only 14.4. It doesn't even quite fit width-wise. I had to kind of squish it in. And I mean, we're gonna give the crush sensor a workout here real quick. My sled's pretty beefy. I think it can take it. Yeah, that ain't happening. I might be able to put it in on its side, or obviously flip the third row down and there's lots of space, but to do what I did yesterday with 3 guys, gear, and a baby, it wasn't gonna happen in the CX-9. Now, I got a good feeling about the Palisade. So I'm thinking we should be pretty close behind the third row. Here we go, let's see what it'll do. Oh, not quite. All right, so by the numbers, I did have the biggest vehicle here today in every regard. And I mean, this is just a small test, but behind the third row, you've got a fair bit of space in that Volkswagen. Here, you've got a fair bit of loss because of the plastic. You got a lot of height, which is really nice, comparable also with the Atlas versus the Mazda, where you saw Steve crush his head in here before. You can even see this headrest is almost in the hatch. It's like you're sitting outside of the vehicle practically, save for a door.
These crossovers, each one of them can tow. So starting with the Atlas, 5,000 pounds. Moving on to the CX-9, 3,500 pounds, smallest engine in the group. And the Palisade, also 5,000 pounds. So obviously you've got to order them with the hitch. However, like I said, they will go down the road and tow for you. Now, that also works because each one of these is all-wheel drive, which will make them a fairly decent package. And last but not least, you have to look at the door stickers. We just don't do that for trucks. We need to do that for all vehicles because there's a payload number on each one of these door stickers. And I don't know why, but a lot of guys who do crossovers ignore that because you've got a lot of people in here gear, and if you're towing, you better know what that number is.
Before we drive though, Matt, let's show them the camera systems here. So stick her in reverse for me. So this is the CX-9, and let's see what you get. So the standard view is just that rear view, and then you should be able to hit the camera button. Oh, there's a top down and a rear.
Oh, and we got the lines for the forward and reverse tires.
Nice. And any more views? Keep hitting it. That's the wide rear. That's it, huh? Just the two, it looks like. Yeah, just the two here in the Mazda.
That's all right. See how they look while you're actually moving here.
Yeah, it looks okay. Nice to have the guidelines.
I do like the front axle guidelines.
That's a little different.
See the swing as you're turning.
Nice.
It's not that you need it if you're going in a straight line like this, but you can at least kind of angle your turns if need be.
All right, now let's look at the cameras here in this Atlas.
All right, so you put it in reverse, and you start with just your standard straightforward back with your guidelines.
Nice.
So you can see your left and right, but this one gets real fun when you hit this menu button. So you start with the aerial view, the 360 all around the car so you can see what's going on, and it gives you still the standard backup view. But over here, you've got a couple of different options. This very first button here, which is the one that you can see, is the perpendicular parking. So the straight into a space, I know that I'm gonna turn that way, I know that I'm gonna turn that way. I come in again. This is a parallel parking setup. And as you can see, it'll tell me based on my wheel inputs, where the vehicle is going to end up in relation to a curb or an object or a wall, as the case may be. And then we have the trailer support or off-road support camera. So
that's
if you're
cool.
Angling yourself, say, towards a hitch, you can really see exactly where you're going, or I mean, you're trying to avoid an obstacle, backing out of a trail, you're stuck, or you just want to see what's back there as you're reversing maybe. And then the last option is the cross traffic. So in the center vein, you're still looking straight back, but you get this super wide out angle, left and right. Like I can see the neighbor's house over there that I couldn't see in the standard view. And then in addition to all that, you can get rid of this if you just want to focus on one or the other.
Nice.
There's a lot of options when backing this thing up. So here, let's see if I can watch your neighbor's house while backing this car up here. Oh yeah, he's got a really nice back patio. That's quite an angle on this thing.
All right, now let's see what the cameras are like here in the Palisade.
All right, so put it in reverse. Okay.
All right, so you got the top down and the rear view. Yeah. This is cool, Matt. This one you can actually zoom this top down or zoom out. That's unique.
And two different levels there.
That's cool.
And you've even got the front axle, rear axle lines.
Nice.
So you can see where your wheels are going. All right, over here on the left, we'll see what we got. So that's the go-to screen when you put it in reverse.
Yeah.
So that we got a trailer view.
Nice, with the hitch line.
Yeah, so you can line that up. And then we've got down the sides. Now that's cool that you can get down the sides plus the top down.
Yeah.
So with both of those,
anywhere you're parking, you're gonna know exactly where you are,
exactly. Right? Now, these two cameras also translate into something else really cool on this thing. But let's go for a drive and we'll show those off.
Okay.
So those two side cameras on this thing also translate into a really cool blind spot or even corner camera, if you will. So we're about to make a right here. Here comes my signal. And the right side gauge, which is my tachometer, turns into a blind spot camera, or lets me see that there's a snowbank sitting right there.
That's pretty cool.
It gives you some pretty cool angles. And now I'll show you on this stretch here, because I'm gonna have to make a lane change here in a minute. So I'll put my left signal on, and now my speedometer turns into a blind spot camera, so I can see there's no one coming, and I can safely make that lane change.
And it's neat that the speed shows up then digitally, so you don't actually lose your information.
You don't lose either of them, and even on the tachometer side, it still shows up. I'm doing 1200 RPM, even while I'm looking at checking my blind spot.
That's neat, and it's the only one here that has it.
So we're here in the Atlas now, and I've been driving this for about a week, and of the three vehicles we have here today, this is undoubtedly the biggest by the numbers. I've got the most cargo room, the longest wheelbase, the largest size, everything. But of course, with that large size also came the largest price tag. Now, as it sits, this one is $57,200 Canadian. And you can get into a base model of this Atlas at $40,000. Still the most expensive, even at that lower end. However, it's expensive, but in here you get a lot of features that, I mean, I've really enjoyed over the course of this past week. And just to name a couple, this heated steering wheel, because I literally got in this thing frozen. It is a 3-stage heated steering wheel. This is the first time I've ever encountered this. And I thought it was great because it was toasting my hands, and when I thought I shut it off, it just turned it down. And I thought, ooh, this is quite lovely.
A lot of the times those wheels can really start to burn your hands, so it's actually nice that it has that option.
It's almost as if it has a wearing gloves mode and a not wearing gloves mode, and you can kind of play with it a little bit. All right, so what does the power feel like in this Atlas? Well, right here, off the line,
on a crappy snowy day too.
On a really ugly day.
Pulling very straight.
Yeah.
It pulls straight. The all-wheel drive system has been great, especially this whole week has been snow. It's been a wall of snow this week, and I haven't had any issues with it taking off from lines, spinning, sliding. It's been great. The one complaint I have had with the power band is the transmission. When you're in the, let's say, driving at gentle range, the first two shifts just bang bang, they snap off super quick, and then everything else feels normal. And those first two felt awkward, and even coming off the line a few times, I'm kind of getting into it, and it did it, and I went, well, what the hell was that? Why am I not just accelerating? I found it was very off-putting in that low range. As far as the interior styling goes here, it's a lot of angular lines, but I like that they've broken it up with different materials. Especially, you get the same leather in the seats stitched into the doors. And I just found that to be quite sharp the first time I opened this thing. And that transitioned up here into my 12-speaker Fender audio system. And when we were first picked this vehicle up and on our way home, I had this thing cranked to max, and it bumps.
It's so good. Like, I've been in a lot of vehicles in my day, and this is one of my favorite OEM audio systems for sure.
And I mean, those are just my observations from the front seat, but what do you got back there? How are you feeling?
Well, certainly this is a vehicle that you're going to have people sitting in the back here pretty much all the time. It's a real family vehicle, right? So whether the kids or the teenagers, or for that matter, if you're old like me and your kids won't let you sit up front anymore, it's fairly comfortable back here. This seat reclines. It also has a lot of forward and back motion. You've got a center fold down armrest. There's also controls back here for the heat. I can set my own temperature. I can also control my fan. I've got USB plugs. I've also got a 115 volt outlet back here, though I didn't bring my game system with me. On the doors, I like one of the facts that the armrests are actually recessed into the doors at a really comfortable height, and each one of these back doors also has these integrated sunshades, which, though I don't need them, they're great for the kids when you get them back here in the car seats.
They are huge. So
you don't have to put the blanket into the window. And just in general, it's spacious, it's comfortable. I got this big moonroof over my head, and yeah, so I think I could stand sitting back here for a while.
Can you toast your buns back there?
The seats are heated, you're absolutely right, but they are not cooled, and that's important to point out.
No.
Last point we're gonna make here in the Volkswagen Atlas is fuel economy. Now, like Matthew said, this is the biggest crossover here, and that also means it sucks the most fuel. This thing is rated at 14.3 liters per 100 in the city and 10.7 on the highway. So yeah, there's a trade-off there for all that size. But yeah, let's go park this beast now, man. Stop sucking up so much fuel and take my CX-9 out for a spin.
Let's get into something a little more efficient.
Now we're here in this Mazda CX-9, and yes, we know in the US it's a Mazda, in Canada it's a Mazda. That's just how it is. So this CX-9, if you want the crossover that has the best driving experience, if you love driving, if you love going to the racetrack, this is the one you're gonna wanna get. Mazda just puts the most amount of time and engineering into the way this thing drives. Even just from sitting here, it feels like much more of a cockpit than the other two. The other two, you feel you're sitting up high. This Mazda, you feel nice and tucked into it. This kind of skinny steering wheel with these bolsters. And then just, Sky Active. Well, what's Sky Active? It is lightweight. They go out of their way to strip as much weight as possible out of this thing. And all of that equals a really good driving experience, nice tight turn-in, and just rewarding driving dynamics. But there's obviously a big problem here too, and that is size. Anybody buying a 3-row crossover is probably doing it not because they love driving, but because they love their kids and they need space for them back there. And if you get the CX-9, you're getting the smallest one straight up. And the reason why it's so small is because of the way it looks. Mazda wants it to have this slick styling, so they rake the rear end off the roof, and it just really eats into your cargo space, your occupant space. Mazda makes a very clear choice. We want our car to look good and drive good more than haul people well. And I think that's, the most important thing. That being said though, we are hauling Matthew in the back seat. So what kind of amenities you got back there, man?
I mean, right off the bat, the captain's chair is quite comfortable. I almost felt like I got into a front seat
I like
when
the
I
leather.
got into the back, which is nice. Back here in the center, I've got basic fan controls, heat, cool, etc. I do have a heated seat, so I got a warm butt. And down low here, I've got 2 USB plugins, but that's about where it ends.
Okay.
It's nice. I've definitely got some options, but I'm certainly not as well appointed as, say, the other two.
Okay.
But enough to enjoy my ride.
On that note, I do have to speak to the comparison because I need to mention the other two models here are absolute top trim. This CX-9 is a Kuro edition, which is technically still one step away from top trim. Now, all I'm really missing are some wooden accents and Napa leather seats. But just be aware that yes, this is not the absolute nicest CX-9 you can get. That is also reflected though in the price, because this is the most affordable of the three, coming in with the price tag just over $52,000. And even if you do step up to that nicer model, you're only at about 54, which is comparable with the Hyundai. So I think that is important to note that you might save a couple bucks with the CX-9.
So listening to you guys talk, I just had an image. So frankly, of the 3 crossovers, this is the midlife crisis edition.
Okay.
This is the one where you got the wife, you got the kids, you got the dog, and you got to have somewhere to put them. And yet when you get rid of them all, you can still jump in here and pretend like, no, I'm still young. I can still zip around. I'm still cool.
Yeah, fair enough. You're right.
I get that vibe.
You're right. And from the outside, it even looks it looks a lot cooler and sleeker than the other two family mobiles. I think that's for sure.
And as far as the family mobile goes, I also have the built-in sunshades in these doors back here.
Good to know.
That is
Good to
2
know.
out of 3 models so far with the built-ins.
Finally, the one thing I haven't mentioned yet is this engine. So you've probably noticed this is the smallest engine of the group. It's just a turbo 4 compared to those V6s. Now on paper, I have more torque, but not more horsepower. And the engine does feel powerful after about 2 seconds. It's a very typical small turbo. You put your foot into it, and there's the power. It's there, it feels comparable to the other two, but it's not that linear power you get out of the V6s. You just feel this boost of turbo come on really hard. The other advantage to going small turbo though is fuel economy, so Dad's got the numbers.
So 11.6 liters per 100 city and 9.1 liters per 100 highway. And
Most
that's
efficient of the group.
that is the best of the group.
Long shot.
So we're in the Hyundai Palisade. This is the calligraphy edition, which is the top of the line. And of course, you've already seen this vehicle from the outside, but this car is all about the inside. And you can't help but get in here and right away be impressed with the materials, the colors, and just the decor in general. It is, and I don't use this word lightly, it's stunning. It really is. I mean, we've got quilted, perforated leather on the doors, on the seats, wood accents, as well as all other types of mesh and silver. I can't even go on. Steve will show you because he's going to be taking some video here. And in addition to that, once you get past how good it looks, then when you actually focus on to the dash, you realize that there are no gauges at all. This thing is strictly screens. It is screens from one end to the other. And as you change drive modes, as you look for different information, the graphics that change, the video things that change, it puts on a show. I mean, I'm not easily impressed, but you can't help but drive this. I mean, for days I kept finding new things going, wow, that's kind of cool. So everything is here, and then it's like that, what I call the Disney effect. Explosion, explosion, beautiful fireworks, and then an absolute thunderstruck bomb. And you look at it and you're just like, okay, and what does this thing cost? Is it $100,000? Is it $80,000? No, it's comparable, very much so, to these other two vehicles that we've been looking at today. So at the end of the day, I'm going to be saying to the boys here, why wouldn't I buy this? There is just so much more.
Sure. I totally hit your point. And Matt, you got the prices there, so you can rhyme off the price.
So the calligraphy model, as we're sitting in now, comes in Canada at $54,700. And that is the middle range of the three we've tested today.
Yeah, that's
the Atlas being more and the CX-9 being less, but I think you're right. You get in this thing and you go, okay, for what you're paying, okay, I like it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, never mind up here. Steve, tell us about that back seat.
Yeah, the back seat's got everything the others have and more. So we have sunshades here on my windows. I have heated seats. I have a 115 volt plug, a 12 volt plug, two USBs, which are actually in the backs of the seats over here, which is interesting. And then the one feature I have here in the Hyundai that no one else has, cooled rear seats.
Oh, man.
So in the middle of the summertime, I'm gonna have a nice cool butt. Yeah, you know what, you get everything back here you could ever want. One interesting thing I noticed too is you do have a panoramic sunroof here, but the Hyundai actually has two separate sunroofs, whereas the Atlas had one massive sunroof. And one of the things that allows for is vents up here right in the roof, just like a minivan. And I don't know if that's specifically why Hyundai did it, but it is nice to have the vents up here. So this back seat's a really nice place to be.
So I can't reiterate enough, content, content, content. Hyundai has built a nice platform, good engine, decent power, quiet ride, but then they stuck so much stuff in here, it's like a three-ring circus. It's really quite something. So this is the largest of the three engines at 3.8 liters. Also running on an Atkinson cycle. When you put your foot into it, you get lots of go right off the line. It dries up a little bit in the mid-range because it's going for that fuel economy. But there's more than enough here. And I reiterate that it does have a tow rating of 5,000 pounds. So they've obviously taken that into consideration. So what are the fuel numbers for this one, Matt?
So this one does come in higher than the CX-9, but it actually does beat my Atlas by quite a stretch. You're gonna do 12.3 liters per 100 in the city and 9.6 liters per 100 on the highway, which is pretty impressive for a vehicle this size.
Well, everybody, we are coming to the end of this one, so we have to give you our verdict. Starting with this Mazda CX-9. I had a great time driving this thing. It drives really nicely, but look, in a segment that is dedicated to hauling people, buying the smallest vehicle might not be the best option for you. Now moving forward, we get to this Volkswagen Atlas, and this is the opposite of the Mazda. If all you really want to do is haul people and stuff in overall comfort, this is the best choice straight up because it is the biggest, but it's also the most expensive. And finally, we get to the model that we would all buy, the Hyundai Palisade. This Hyundai just seems to have it all. It's decently priced, it has an unbelievable interior, tons of power, and just a hair less space than that Volkswagen. So yeah, honestly, if we were putting our money on the table, we are going to the Hyundai dealership to buy a Palisade. So folks, that is it for this video. Of course, I want to know what you think, so please go below into the comments. Let us know which one you would buy. While you're down there, don't forget to hit like, hit that subscribe button, hit the join button to become a member of the channel, and then come right back here to Truck King to see what we are testing next. See ya.